I welcome everyone. I'm super excited to get going with this first class on proactive prison adjustment. I got my cup of coffee. I'm going to teach and provide some value that, well, I hope it provides a lot of value to you. And coming back to the name Peace of Mind for a moment, I can tell you the majority of people who reach out to us, their questions about prison make the most sense because having gone to prison, you worry about commissary and jobs and things like they're important, but at the end of the day, while I want you to have a better job, it's not everything. While it's important to learn how to shop in the commissary in the totality of your life, it doesn't mean a whole lot. That's why I mentioned this isn't going to be boilerplate stuff you can get online or probably get through some of the YouTube videos that I provide. I really want to get specific and ensure that you surrender from a position of strength with a plan that you could justify to your friends and family, and help you understand that just because your body may be confined in prison doesn't mean that your mind is not free to roam, wonder, and grow and really create. So the lessons we're going to convey, I'll convey through this from my own experience. Of course, my business partner, Michael Santos, who did 26 years, you're going to want to go through all of these lessons because I've asked Michael to do a special video with me only for you. Will not be on YouTube, won't be anywhere else. A video at the end of this course where he and I discuss strategies that guided him through 26 years in prison. I can assure you he had peace of mind every single day because he was pursuing values, he had a plan, and it's part of the reason he's thrived upon his release going back 7 years now. So we're authentic. We would never ask you to do anything that our team has not done, and we've documented it. Frankly, a strategy that I encourage all of you to do, and you will see some documentation through this 5-day course. And I say documentation not just from our team, but clients of ours who have actually done it, clients you can Google and hold accountable and look at their life both in prison and after as a result of leading, as we talk about this first class, a very proactive adjustment in prison. So presuming you're avoiding problems in prison and not getting disciplinary infractions, and that's why at the end of this first class I'm giving you our lesson plan on disciplinary infractions. You can't do anything great or significant in prison if you're associating with imbeciles, if you're getting into trouble, if you're going to the hole, if you're losing good time, you've got to associate with the right people. You've got to avoid trouble. So you have to understand disciplinary infractions. There's no peace of mind if you're getting into trouble. There's no peace of mind if you're associating with the right people. There's no peace of mind if staff is looking to take away your good time or halfway house. And you may say to me, as clients have said, Justin, I'm not stupid. I'm not going to get into trouble. You are more moving into a foreign world of confinement. It is different. In our community or where you live, if you have a problem, what do? You go to the police. You report it. Well, you don't do that in prison. So without understanding some of the different dynamics that exist on the inside, you set yourself up for problems. So you've got to read the lesson plan on disciplinary infractions, which I'm attaching for you at the end of this. With respect to a proactive prison adjustment, which is the first class, what does that mean exactly? Well, what it means is you're not letting the prison dictate your happiness. You're not letting the prison institutionalize you, which I would argue is your happiness contingent on something happening, whether it be, I should probably talk into the microphone here. You're not letting the institution determine your happiness. Well, what does that mean? Well, if email goes down for some guys, they flip out. Their whole day is derailed. If mail call doesn't come at 3 o'clock, or the New York Times or the USA doesn't show up, they're totally derailed. During COVID right now, visitation has been shut down. Admittedly, I've had clients who have not visited with their family for 10 months. That is difficult. There is no way to spin that is hard. And it would be very hard to go a long time without seeing your children. There is no question. But it doesn't change that if you're going to create peace of mind and develop a plan on the inside, you're going to have to find a way to power through it. Because if not, well, what's going to happen? The experience is going to be harder than it already needs to be. So that's what I mean by not letting the institution determine your happiness. Things are going to happen. Phones are going to shut down. You're going to run out of phone minutes. Email is going to shut down. Visitation, like it is right now, may be suspended. And a whole slew of issues that could make it hard for you to even want to get out of bed or be proactive. So in our experience, our clients that have really thrived through at White Collar Advice, it's because they have frankly become obsessed. And this does require an obsession to really thrive through it. In some ways, you almost have to be a little nutty, a little screwy. I have been told I'm quirky. I'll own it. I am. You have to believe that you can do things that people don't think you can do. You have to embrace this idea that your life is now different because you're a felon who's serving time in prison. You've got to embrace this underdog mantra, which requires you to think and do things differently than the average person, right? So you have to all be very careful, both before prison and in prison, about the advice that you get, because people may not understand your life, or they could be looking to derail you and not want you to succeed. So a proactive prison adjustment requires following your own thoughts and ideas, certainly bringing mentors into your network who have your best advice, who want to see you thrive and succeed. But at the end of it, it's going to come down to the decisions that you make. When clients of ours write and document their journey, some people, including staff, call them nuts. If they didn't have confidence and didn't believe what they were doing was sound, it would be very easy for them to stop, because someone told them it's not a good idea. They're very easy. Some people are very easy to influence, including people in prison. That's what sends some people to prison, making bad decisions influenced by others without considering how that choice would influence the rest of their life. Well, that same process happens in prison. And again, their happiness or success or plan is now contingent on what someone else is telling them to do, much like their happiness may be contingent on is email up that day or they're going to get mail. So I think a proactive prison adjustment begins with working from within and identifying what it is you're hoping to accomplish. And that really starts with focusing on what you can control. Can't control email, phone, or visitation. You can control what time you wake up. You can control the people with whom you associate. You can control what it is you're going to do each and every day. So I know in my case in federal prison, with my yellow notepad, that I've probably gone through 100 of them, I derived a sense of satisfaction before I went to bed every day, writing out what I would do the next day. And it sounds so boilerplate, so easy, probably something you can get from any online marketer who sells inspiration or hope, writing out your goals. Okay, I think it's different in prison when you're trying to embrace what it is you can and cannot control. So I think the first step or assignment for you, even if you're not in prison yet, I know if you're watching this, you're not in prison, though some people will, unfortunately. They'll be watching this class from prison. I think the first assignment for you is to write out what can you control in prison. Your attitude, what time you wake up, how much you exercise, what you put in your body, the messages you send via email or snail mail. I believe the first step in creating peace of mind is fixating on what you can control. Because if you fixate on what you can control, you're beginning to create a proactive and positive prison adjustment, because now you're not letting the institution determine your happiness or success, but rather you're finding ways to be productive and proactive from the inside. And scores of our clients have done it, hundreds of them, and we're going to talk about them throughout this course. Now, in my case, when I surrendered to prison, I was not proactive. I had watched too many movies about television. I feared and worried about things that turned out to be so stupid and made absolutely no sense, like obsessing over how clean the toilets were. They were fine. Or my job, it's fine. Or how often I could visit, it's fine. What staff would be like, they're fine. Pretty indifferent, most lazily lethargic. It's fine. I was worried about things that I could not control rather than giving thought to how will this experience impact the rest of my life. So I was not proactive, and I adjusted to confinement the way that many people do. Now, in my case, I didn't watch TV for 10 or 12 or 14 hours a day like some prisoners do. But in a way, I adjusted through exercise. So while that's not as bad as TV, it was still my only outlet. And it's good to exercise. I became a runner. I got into better shape. But that's really all I did. It was a fixation on exercising and my diet and trying to lose the weight that had bogged down my mind and body for so long. I know going through this experience presents some stress. And in my case, I didn't drink or do drugs. I like to eat in the evenings and play a lot of online chess, and I got fat and chubby, and I was excited to exercise. But that's all I did. And by only doing that, I wasn't giving thought to what I would do when I went home. Now, something that I was upon my surrender to prison, and certainly I think anytime you hear the word delusional or probably insane, it does not equate to peace of mind. Peace of mind, again, comes with acceptance, what we can and cannot control, and creating a plan. Well, you cannot have peace of mind if you're delusional or insane or living like an ostrich with your head buried in the sand. So many defendants over the years, or prisoners, will surrender to prison and have an idea of what their life is going to be like on the other side. Maybe they're still working in a career that they presume will continue, or a job they believe is waiting for them, even if they know in the back of their mind it may or may not be there. So they begin to rationalize that things are going to be a certain way, which precludes or prevents them from working as hard as they really need to while they're in custody, because they feel like there's a plan B. Things began to change for me when there was no plan B. There was only a plan A and nothing else. And that aha moment for me came several months into my prison term. I need the aha moment to come for you right now. The reason you're taking this free course, to ensure that the day that you surrender, you're not fixated about things you cannot control, but rather creating a plan that gets you through your journey. So for me, several months into my prison term, I was showing off one day to my business partner, Michael Santos, about the shape that I was getting. I was getting into better shape, and I'm like, dude, my six pack is coming in, and did 10 pull-ups today. I mean, who cares? Nobody cares. I'd fallen into like a little bit of like a narcissistic pattern, which I'd never been a part of my life. But I was alone all day. I was exercising all day. I was getting fitter and stronger, and I wanted to talk about it. Nobody cares. It's kind of like my golf game. Nobody cares. Okay, they're fixated and worried about themselves. So one day I'm in Michael's office or cubicle, and he's like, "Hey, bud, that's great. You're running. You're doing pull-ups. People going to pay you to do those pull-ups?" And I'm like, "What do you mean? How much are you going to get paid to do pull-ups?" I'm like, "I don't think anyone's going to pay me." And he said, "What are you going to do when you come home?" I said, "Well, I was selling real estate for 3 years before I went to prison. I'll probably just do that." And he began to enlighten and educate me on people or prisoners who were just like me, who had adjusted to confinement through exercise or TV or table games or sleeping or complaining, and weren't really focused on the realities of what life would be like for them on the other side. Even for guys who had jobs lined up, if they didn't fully understand what led them to prison, it would be a life of excuses and rationalizations and anger at the government. So I had a whole lot of work to do 3 months in, while all I did was fixated on my transforming physique. That was a mistake. So that conversation 3 months in, it really transformed and changed my life. My whole pattern or whole prison term adjusted from exercise and trying to get a better job and bunk and letting the institution control what was happening within, to how proactive can I be? And that's how I'm going to wrap up this first class. The transition that came for me after I understood what it meant to be proactive, what it meant to begin to control my own life, take matters into my own hands and not care about my bunk or job, or if the heat went out, or if I had to take a cold shower, or a visitation was shut down, or if I was serving time with guys that didn't even do their job and we had to double up. I could not worry about what I could not control. But after that conversation with Michael, I adjusted. I began to wake earlier, and alongside him I began to write. We began to write our blog that then became Lessons from Prison. I began to do a better job of writing letters to my network. There was no email when I was in prison. There is now. You have no excuse to not be growing your network significantly. That's proactive. That's controlling what you can control, your messaging. So I began to wake early, work on our blog, then our book. Of course, I still got my exercise in, but instead of it being 4 or 5 hours a day, I condensed it to a couple of hours in the morning. I was proactive in the literature that I was beginning to read. In my home office right here are some of my favorite books that I read while in prison. And like many people in prison, I began to read without a plan. I'd read it, couldn't tell you what I learned from it, how it helped me. And at Michael's urging, I began to read. In fact, I just had a great idea. I'm going to send you, let me make a note here. I'm going to send you I began to read books and then write a book report or write down notes from that book. So an example, a book I read in prison is Why Good People Do Bad Things by Deborah Ford. Well, rather than just read it and probably remember 3 things from it, I actually took notes on the book, and I'll email it to you. I'll add it to this. I'll get it to you somehow, some way. You'll actually see the notes that I took from the book. I did that with 100 books because being proactive, I knew I had to be a better communicator. I knew I had to build my vocabulary. So I used to stand in line to the chow hall with index cards. So that is another example of being proactive in how my routine changed from 6 hours of exercise to 2, to writing and blogging, snail mailing letters home, reading books that would advance the career I wanted to lead upon my release. And by going about it in this proactive, very positive way and not feeling like I was suffering or serving time endlessly or waiting for mail call or paint to dry or one day to turn to the next, I was so freaking excited to get up every single day because I knew I was making decisions that would make my life on the other side easier. Frankly, I didn't care in the end because I was so proactive and productive, whether I got a month, 2 months, 3 months, or 4 months in the halfway house. I know you want as much time as possible, especially if you have a family and children you want to get home to. In my case, I didn't. The point that I'm making is whether they gave me 3 months, 6 months, or a month in the halfway house, my happiness wasn't contingent on what a staff member did to me or what they said to me. Happiness was coming from within by being proactive. So that's how I'm going to close. Write out what it is you hope to do every day in prison. Write out things that you know you can absolutely control, and then share it with your network. Allow people with whom you love and support you to hold you accountable. Some clients and people have said to me, well, I don't want to share it with I don't want to burden them. They're busy and it's not their business. I think that lacks accountability. Sometimes people don't want to share these goals and how they'll be proactive because they don't want to be held accountable. So in my case, by writing my blog and then this book with Michael and growing it, I was putting goals out to the world and I was inviting people to hold me accountable. That helped me wake early and just be very deliberate throughout the day in prison. So that's how I'll close this first class in our Peace of Mind class. Do more than survive prison. Hundreds of thousands of people survive prison. Life on the other side is more difficult than it needs to be. I need you to be proactive and to be totally obsessed with what it is you can and cannot control. And I did not plan to share notes about the book report, but I love that I'm going to be authentic and share an example of a review I wrote for a book and lessons that I've shared in that book for lectures I've given for years to come. Look forward to seeing you in class 2. And again, read that lesson plan on disciplinary infractions. Thank you.